The oak-paneled boardroom of Pinnacle Wealth Management hummed with the quiet arrogance of power. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off the polished surface of a conference table that cost more than most people's homes. At its head, Senior Manager Richard Holt barely glanced up from his smartphone as he tossed a stack of intern paperwork across the table with a flick of his wrist. The gesture was sharp, dismissive, almost theatrical. "Let's see if you can keep up with the real work around here," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. The words landed like a slap into pristine silence. Eleanor Brooks, 52, sat at the far end of the table, her posture composed, her hands folded neatly over a worn leather binder. Her navy blazer, bought on clearance from a department store, was slightly frayed at the cuffs, a stark contrast to the tailored suits of the other interns around her. She adjusted her glasses, her calm brown eyes betraying nothing as Richard's gaze lingered on her with thinly veiled disdain. "You're the diversity hire, right?" he said, not waiting for an answer. "Hope you can handle more than just fetching coffee." A faint chuckle rippled through the room, led by a young intern named Claire Donovan, whose manicured fingers hovered over her phone, already streaming the moment to her Instagram followers. Eleanor's lips curved into a faint, unreadable smile. Tucked inside her binder, a platinum corporate ID badge caught the light for a fleeting second. 8 hours and 30 minutes remained until the board meeting that would turn this company upside down. Have you ever been underestimated so completely that your silence became your sharpest weapon? Morning. The facade begins, 9:30 a.m. The digital clock on the wall ticked mercilessly as Richard Holt leaned back in his leather chair, addressing the 6 other interns as if Eleanor didn't exist. "Let's talk about what wealth management really entails," he said, his tone patronizing. "Some of you might find this challenging." His eyes flicked to Eleanor, who sat quietly, her pen moving across a notepad with deliberate precision. Every word, every glance, every snicker from the group, she recorded it all with the meticulousness of someone trained to see patterns where others saw only chaos. Claire, the Instagram influencer with a Yale degree, angled her phone to capture Eleanor's worn binder and modest attire. Her live-stream chat buzzed with comments. "This is painful to watch. Diversity hire's gonna crash and burn." Richard assigned tasks with a flourish. "Claire, you'll shadow our private equity team. Ethan, you're with portfolio management." His finger paused on Eleanor. "And you filing, coffee runs, basic admin. Let's see if you can handle that level of responsibility." The interns exchanged smirks. Claire's followers, now at 800, flooded the chat with laughing emojis. Eleanor rose without a word, her movements graceful but unassuming. As she reached the door, Richard's voice followed her. "Eleanor, right? Like that old first lady. How quaint." His smile was sharp enough to cut glass. She paused, turning slightly. "Actually, Eleanor means light in Greek. Sometimes, things shine brighter than they seem." The comment hung in the air, a quiet challenge that Richard dismissed with a scoff. 10:15 a.m. 7 hours and 15 minutes until the board meeting. Midday. The pressure builds. 10:45 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. At the reception desk, administrative assistant Linda Carter barely glanced at Eleanor. "Coffee orders are on the board," she said curtly. "Don't mess them up. We don't tolerate mistakes here." The whiteboard listed 10 orders, each more absurdly specific than the last. Richard's was underlined in red: triple shot latte, almond milk, exactly 135 degrees Fahrenheit. No foam. Eleanor studied the list, her face unreadable. While waiting at the cafe downstairs, her phone vibrated. A notification from Brooks Enterprises, the parent company of Pinnacle Wealth, flashed across the screen. Quarterly report ready for review. Confirm 6 p.m. board presentation. She silenced it quickly, her eyes scanning the crowded cafe to ensure no one noticed. A second message followed. "Eleanor, conference room is prepped." Private elevator or standard? Margaret. She deleted both messages and focused on the coffee orders. Back on the 45th floor, Eleanor distributed the drinks with quiet efficiency. When she reached Richard's office, she knocked softly. "About time," he muttered, not looking up from his computer. "Set it down and get out. I've got actual work to do." As she placed the cup on his desk, her eyes caught his screen. Email threads with subject lines like diversity quotas and maintaining standards. Her photographic memory cataloged the senders, timestamps, and phrases. "Something wrong?" Richard snapped. "No, sir," she replied evenly. "Anything else you need?" His response was cold. "Stay out of my way." 11:30 a.m. 6 hours remaining. Eleanor was relegated to a cramped storage room, sorting files amid the hum of industrial copiers. Employees passed by, some casting pitying glances, others whispering as they stared. Clarence Mitchell, a janitor who'd worked the building for 20 years, paused at the doorway. His weathered hands adjusted a mop as he studied her precise organization of documents. "You holding up okay, Miss Brooks?" he asked, his voice kind but cautious. Eleanor looked up, surprised by the warmth. "I'm fine, thank you, Mr. Mitchell." He nodded slowly. "I've seen a lot of interns come and go. Most break in a week. You're different." Before she could respond, Claire appeared, her phone still recording. "Still here," she said, her tone mocking. "My followers think you might be better suited for something simpler." The live stream now had 1,500 viewers, with comments like, "She's trying so hard. It's sad." Eleanor continued sorting files, each movement deliberate, as if handling legal contracts instead of mundane paperwork. "What kind of work would that be?" she asked, her voice calm but pointed. Claire hesitated, then smirked. "You know, less corporate." Clarence's eyes narrowed. "The lady's doing fine work. Maybe you should focus on your own." Claire rolled her eyes and walked away, her viewer count climbing to 2,200. 12:15 p.m. 5 hours and 45 minutes remaining. In the cafeteria, Eleanor sat alone, picking at a salad while reviewing her notes. Around her, employees whispered and pointed. Richard's voice carried from a nearby table, where he held court with two department heads, Susan Kim and David Larson. "HR's lost it with these hires," he said loudly. "We're running a business, not a social experiment." Susan nodded. "The board's diversity push is getting out of hand. We need people who can actually handle the work." Eleanor's pen moved swiftly, documenting names, quotes, and witnesses. Her phone buzzed. "Board meeting confirmed, 6 p.m. All materials ready. Private elevator?" "Margaret." She replied, "Standard elevator. Maintaining cover." Across the room, Claire's phone was propped against a glass, still recording. Her followers were now betting on how long Eleanor would last. But in a quiet corner, security guard Henry Jackson watched her closely. He'd worked the building for 10 years and swore he'd seen her before, maybe during a high-level tour months ago. "Everything okay up here?" his supervisor asked. "Yeah," Henry replied, his eyes still on Eleanor. "Just keeping watch." Afternoon. The trap tightens, 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. At 1 p.m., Richard called a training session in the main conference room. 20 employees gathered around the glass table, including Susan, David, and several junior associates eager to impress. "Let's review some basics," Richard said, his eyes locked on Eleanor. "Starting with our intern's grasp of wealth management." Claire angled her phone for the best shot, her live stream now at 4,000 viewers. Comments flew. "This is brutal. She's done for." "Eleanor, define EBITDA," Richard said, his tone a clear trap. "Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization," she replied instantly. "A measure of a company's operational profitability." The room went quiet. Richard's smile tightened. "Lucky guess. How about NAV? Net asset value?" Eleanor said, unflinching. "The total value of a fund's assets minus its liabilities." often used in mutual fund valuation. Claire's chat shifted. Wait, she knows this? Plot twist. Richard projected a complex financial statement onto the screen. Since you're so confident, walk us through this quarterly report. Explain the cash flow. Eleanor studied the document for 20 seconds, then spoke with quiet authority. Operating cash flow is $52.4 million, reflecting strong core performance. However, the $15.6 million in financing activities suggests heavy debt servicing, and the $9.1 million drop in investing activities indicates reduced capital expenditure, likely due to cost-cutting or delayed expansion. Her analysis was flawless, drawing impressed murmurs from senior analysts. Richard's face reddened. Textbook answers don't mean you belong here, he snapped. This business takes instinct, connections, pedigree. The word pedigree landed like a slur, and Claire's chat erupted. Did he just say that? This is wild. 2:15 p.m. 3 hours and 45 minutes remaining. Richard retreated to his office with Susan and David, their voices audible through the cracked door. She's making me look bad, Richard hissed. We need her gone. Susan suggested. Claims she's disruptive. We've got witnesses. David added. Say she violated security protocols. That's immediate termination. Eleanor, passing by with a stack of files, paused to listen, her face unreadable. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mess. Brooks, it's Henry from security. Meet me in the break room, level 40. Urgent. In the break room, Henry leaned forward, his voice low. I remember you now. 6 months ago, you toured with Brooks Enterprises execs, asking about employee morale and security systems. What's going on? Eleanor's composure didn't waver. I'm conducting an assessment. I need your help. Henry frowned. What kind? CCTV footage, she said. Every angle, every interaction, especially Richard's office and the conference room. He hesitated, then nodded. I'll get it done. 3:30 p.m. 2 hours and 30 minutes remaining. Back on the 45th floor, chaos was brewing. Claire's live stream had gone viral, with Pinnacle Wealth bias trending on Twitter and LinkedIn. HR was scrambling to contain the fallout as the video hit 20,000 views. Richard, undeterred, called an emergency intern meeting. Due to safety violations and disruptive behavior, he said, glaring at Eleanor. We're taking disciplinary action. MS. Brooks, you've been seen accessing restricted areas and handling confidential materials. The accusation was absurd, and even the other interns looked uneasy. Ethan, a quiet intern from Cornell, spoke up. Sir, Eleanor's been helping us all day. She hasn't done anything wrong. Richard's glare was venomous. I don't recall asking for your opinion, Mr. Hayes. Claire, sensing the tide turning, doubled down. I've got video proof she was acting suspicious, but employees gathered outside the glass walls had seen the live stream. They knew who the real aggressor was. Eleanor spoke, her voice steady. Mr. Holt, are you formally accusing me of misconduct? Please specify the policies I've violated. Richard fumbled with a stack of papers. Section 5.2 of the Handbook on Unauthorized Access. Eleanor's gaze was unrelenting. Can you provide dates, times, and witnesses? The room fell silent. Richard's trap was unraveling. The reveal, power unveiled, 4 p.m. At exactly 4 p.m., Eleanor stood, her movements deliberate. The conference room held its breath as she approached Richard's laptop, still connected to the projector. What are you doing? Richard barked. Get away from my computer. Eleanor's fingers moved swiftly. You left your email open, Mr. Holt. I need to show everyone something. Henry appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, watching intently. The screen filled with emails that made the room gasp. February 10th, Richard Holt to Susan Kim. Another diversity hire? This is a disaster waiting to happen. March 5th, to David Larson. The board's DEI push is nonsense. Time to protect our standards. April 12th, to HR, reject candidate Pateltu ethnic for client-facing roles. Each email was a nail in Richard's coffin, revealing a systematic pattern of discrimination. Claire's phone shook as she recorded, her live stream now at 25,000 viewers, with comments screaming, "This is evidence. Save this." Eleanor stepped back as Richard lunged for the laptop. "You're violating privacy laws," he shouted. She remained calm. Under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, discriminatory communications on company systems waive privacy protections. These emails violate Section 1981 and state anti-discrimination laws, each carrying fines of $50,000 to $250,000. Her legal precision stunned the room. This wasn't intern knowledge, this was executive expertise. She dialed a number, putting it on speaker. "Margaret, it's Eleanor. Prepare the boardroom for an emergency session. Full board attendance." A crisp voice replied, "Yes, MS. Brooks. Shall I notify legal for termination documents?" The name Brooks hit like a thunderbolt. Richard staggered back. "Brooks as in Brooks Enterprises?" Eleanor removed her clearance blazer, revealing a tailored silk blouse. From her binder, she pulled a platinum badge with the Brooks Enterprises logo. Eleanor Marie Brooks, Chief Compliance Officer and Board Member, Brooks Enterprises. "I've been conducting an undercover audit of Pinnacle Wealth's workplace culture." The room was silent. The woman they'd mocked all day held the power to reshape their careers. Claire's phone clattered to the floor, still streaming to 30,000 viewers. "For 2 years," Eleanor continued, "Brooks Enterprises has received 19 complaints about discrimination at Pinnacle. Employee surveys showed 62% of minority staff faced bias. Today's audit has confirmed the source, a manager who sees diversity as a liability." She gestured to the screen. "Mr. Holt's actions have created a hostile work environment, violating federal law and exposing the company to millions in liability." Board meeting, justice delivered, 6 p.m. At 6 p.m., Eleanor entered the executive boardroom on the 46th floor, now in a tailored gray suit that screamed authority. 10 Brooks Enterprises executives and 6 Pinnacle board members sat around a mahogany table, laptops displaying legal documents and social media feeds. Margaret, Eleanor's assistant, handed her a dossier. "All evidence compiled. Legal is ready." Eleanor took her seat at the head of the table, the city skyline sprawling below. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "today's audit exposed systemic discrimination that threatens our legal standing and financial health." The screen displayed Richard's emails, CCTV footage of his coffee spilling stunt, and Claire's livestream clips. Legal analysis confirms violations of Title VII, Section 1981, and state laws. Estimated liability: $12.8 million in legal costs, $6.4 million in settlements, $7.2 million in lost productivity. Total: $26.4 million annually. The board gasped. Pinnacle's profit margin was $30 million. This was a financial catastrophe. Board chairwoman Elizabeth Turner's voice was tight with anger. "How did we miss this?" Eleanor clicked to a slide showing personnel data. Under Mr. Holt's leadership, minority retention dropped to 21% compared to a 65% company average. Hiring diversity fell 39%. Productivity declined 15% due to turnover and toxicity. CFO Thomas Rivera studied the numbers. "This is unsustainable. What's the remediation cost?" Eleanor outlined her plan. Phase 1, immediate terminations and demotions, $280,000 in severance and hiring costs. Phase 2, cultural overhaul, $750,000 annually. Phase 3, compliance systems, for $100,000 implementation, $100,000 annually. Total, $1.5 million. Projected savings: $24.9 million in avoided liability and productivity gains. The business case was undeniable. Security escorted Richard, Claire, Susan, David, and Linda into the room. Richard's arrogance was gone, replaced by panic. "This is a setup," he shouted. Eleanor's voice was ice. "Mr. Holt, you had 8 hours to show decency. You chose discrimination. I documented your choices." The screen played footage of his actions, each incident a legal violation. MS. Donovan live-streamed harassment to 30,000 viewers. MS. Kim and Mr. Larson enabled discriminatory practices. MS. Carter ignored bias reports. Claire sobbed. "I didn't know who you were." Eleanor's gaze was unrelenting. "So harassment is fine if the target seems powerless?" Richard made a final plea. "I have a family, a mortgage, please." Eleanor's response was measured. "Every employee you drove away had families and dreams, too. Did you consider them?" Chairwoman Turner called for votes. Richard's termination, unanimous. Claire's internship termination, unanimous. Susan and David's demotions, 9-1. Linda's reassignment, unanimous. Eleanor announced the Mitchell Opportunity Fund, named for Clarence, who'd shown her kindness. $400,000 annually for minority scholarships in finance, she said. Clarence, standing in the doorway, blinked in surprise as the board applauded. The symbolism was perfect, the overlooked janitor now a symbol of change. 3 months later, a new era. 3 months later, Pinnacle Wealth's 45th floor was unrecognizable. The toxic air was gone, replaced by collaboration and respect. Eleanor walked the halls, now greeted warmly by employees who knew her story. Ethan, now a full-time analyst, stopped her. "It's like a different company. The new training actually works." Data backed him up, productivity up 25%, employee satisfaction up from 2.3 to 4.5 out of 5, and 0 minority resignations. A CNN crew filmed a documentary in the conference room, studying Pinnacle's transformation. "Critics call your audit deceptive," the interviewer said. Eleanor smiled. "Deception implies malice. I exposed truth. The real deception was believing discrimination had no consequences." The anonymous reporting system she'd implemented had logged 39 bias incidents, all resolved swiftly. AI-driven email monitoring flagged problematic language, turning potential issues into learning moments. Richard Holt was unemployable, his LinkedIn dormant after months of failed job searches. Claire, after extensive bias training, worked at a nonprofit, her public apology earning cautious second chances. Clarence, now facilities manager, helped select Mitchell Fund scholars. The fund had raised $1.8 million, supporting 87 students. 1 year later, a movement. A year later, Eleanor's Brooks method had spread to 52 companies across 9 industries. Minority retention rose 37%, satisfaction 31%, productivity 22%. The Mitchell Fund grew to $5.1 million, supporting 203 students, 15 already in finance careers. Eleanor's TED Talk, The Power of Invisible Courage, had 4.2 million views. Managers now hesitated before making biased remarks. HR took reports seriously. Employees felt empowered. The real victory was in the daily interactions. Employees collaborated across backgrounds, judged by merit, not demographics. Respect replaced fear. Eleanor's office overflowed with emails from workers sharing stories of bias and gratitude for her courage. One stood out, from a former analyst who'd quit under Richard's harassment. MS. "Brooks, I'm back in finance because of you. Thank you for showing us our voices matter." Eleanor stood at her window, the city alive below. One company was transformed, but the industry and the world still had far to go. Her revolution had begun with a spilled latte and a refusal to accept disrespect. Now it was reshaping workplaces, one story at a time. What did you think of Eleanor's journey? Have you witnessed workplace injustice or faced discrimination yourself? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's discuss how bullying and bias affect lives and what we can do to fight back. Do you believe Eleanor's approach was justified, or did she go too far? Take a stand and let your voice be heard. Together, we can drive change by refusing to stay silent.